Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching.
The button made a soft chime. A nutrient block dropped from the dispenser and tumbled into the mud. On the observation deck above, a Druuma child pressed the button again. And again. 3 more blocks fell. The child's silicate body pulsed with amusement as the humans below shuffled toward the food. "Look," the child said to its parent. "They're hungry." The parent barely glanced down. "Don't waste the credits. 1 block is enough." But the child pressed again. 4 more blocks. The humans gathered them, slowly, heads down, movement sluggish. One of them slipped in the mud and fell. The child laughed, a grinding sound like stones rubbing together. The audio guide played on loop. Homo sapiens, origin world, Earth, destroyed. This terminal collection represents the last surviving members of the species. Note their basic tool use and social clustering behaviors. Intelligence rating, 2.3. Researchers initially believed humans possessed rudimentary language, but subsequent studies have confirmed their vocalizations are mimicry only, lacking semantic content. Please enjoy the feeding interaction. The dispensary accepts all major currency formats. The Gallery of Fading Worlds was the most famous zoo in the known galaxy. 200 habitat domes, 4,000 species, 12 million visitors every cycle. Politicians posed for images at the main concourse. Wealthy collectors paid fortunes for private viewings of the rarest specimens. Dome 14 was not one of the rare ones. The human exhibit sat between the mosslings of Thevar 9th and the stone crawlers of Belfix, mid-tier attractions for visitors who had already seen the dangerous predators in Sector 12 and wanted something quieter before lunch. 500 visitors rotated through the observation deck every hour. Peak season, school groups, families, couples on leisure travel. Dome 14 was a scheduled stop on the standard tour. The gift shop outside sold human-shaped toys, vials of authentic habitat soil, and prints of photographs recovered from Earth's dead servers. The bestseller was a small figurine of a human holding a primitive tool. The tag read, "They almost made it." A Kathvari officer stood at the barrier, arms crossed over his scaled chest. He watched for 3 minutes, snorted. "Pathetic," he said to his companion. "They don't even fight each other." "What did you expect?" "Something. Anything." He turned away. "Let's see the Vorax. I heard they killed a keeper last cycle." The observation deck churned with bodies. Species of all kinds pressed against the barrier, looked down, and saw exactly what they expected to see. Humans in the mud. Humans weaving grass. Humans sitting in clusters, making soft sounds at each other. Animals. 7 sat with his back against a bamboo stalk, fingers working a strip of fiber. To anyone watching from above, he was grooming. Idle behavior. The kind of thing a creature with a 2.3 intelligence rating might do to pass the time. His hands moved without thought. They had done this for 15 years. His eyes never stopped counting. 4 keepers on the morning rotation, 3 on evening. Patrol sweep every 90 minutes. The Curator Prime visited the observation deck twice per week, always on 3rd day and 6th day. Feeding dispensers activated on a 12-hour cycle. Maintenance hatches opened once per month for atmospheric checks. 15 years of counting. 7 was 53 years old. He had been 38 when Earth burned. A structural engineer. He had built bridges across rivers that no longer existed, in cities that were now ash, on a world that had become a footnote in a Vethian archive. He remembered his son's face. Some days. Other days, it slipped away, and he spent hours trying to pull it back. The color of his eyes, the sound of his laugh. He never spoke about it. There was nothing to say. The fiber strip broke in his hands. He selected another and kept working. Across the habitat, near the eastern mudflat, 41 crouched in a depression hidden from the observation deck's sight lines. a natural blind spot that the humans had mapped over the years. The bamboo grew thick here, casting shadows that the artificial sun couldn't penetrate. 41's hands were buried in ash. Beneath the ash, wrapped in dried leaves, a coal bed smoldered. It had been burning for 6 years. They fed it in shifts. Never let it die. The Vethian had noted fire-making behavior in year 2. They had observed it with clinical interest, published a paper on it, and concluded it was instinctive rather than learned. Primitive thermal-seeking response, the paper said. No evidence of controlled application. They hadn't looked closely enough. 41 checked the coals, added a handful of dried grass, and covered them again. His movements were slow, deliberate. The movements of a man who had learned that patience was the only weapon that couldn't be taken away. He was 59. Former merchant marine. He had been on a cargo hauler when the distress calls stopped coming from Earth. By the time they understood what had happened, the Vethian collection ships were already waiting. Survivors, the Vethian had called them. Specimens. 41 remembered the intake process, the scanners, the tagging, the moment they had taken his name and given him a number. He had been Brannock Ides once, a man with a history, a family, a home. Now he was 41, a number that meant nothing. He smiled sometimes, thinking about what the numbers would mean soon. Near the keeper entrance, a young man sat cross-legged in the mud, weaving grass into a pattern that would never become anything. His hands moved. His eyes stayed down. His ears caught every sound. 219 was 21 years old. He had been 6 when they brought him here. His memories of Earth were fragments, colors, sounds, the feeling of wind that wasn't recycled, a dog barking somewhere, a hand holding his... He didn't remember whose hand. The preserve was the only world he knew. The bamboo groves, the mud, the artificial sky that never quite looked right, the faces above the barrier, staring down, pressing buttons, laughing. He had grown up being watched, being studied, being discussed in languages he wasn't supposed to understand. But he understood everything. 15 years of listening had taught him the Vethian's layered speech, the harmonics, the tonal shifts, the meanings beneath the meanings. The translators flattened it into monotone clinical statements. 219 heard what the translators erased. He knew when a keeper was bored, when one was anxious, when the curator prime was pleased with himself, which was often. He knew the word for specimen, the word for collection, the word for reduction. He knew words the Vethian didn't think he could know. Right now, he was listening to 2 junior keepers near the entrance. They spoke freely, voices unhushed. Why would they whisper? The animals couldn't understand. 63 is still symptomatic, one said. His skin shifted to pale blue, the color of mild inconvenience. Respiratory distress, worsening. Log it, the other said. Natural processes. Should we intervene? The specimen is juvenile. Curator Prime's standing orders. No medical interference with Category C fauna. It disrupts behavioral baselines. Pale blue shifted to gray. Loss of interest. The keepers moved on. 219 kept weaving. His hands didn't shake. He had learned long ago how to keep his body still while his mind screamed. 63 was 8 years old. Born in the preserve, she had never seen a sky that wasn't fake, never breathed air that wasn't recycled, never known a world where she wasn't property. She had a cough that wouldn't stop, and the keepers had just decided to let her die. The artificial sun moved across the dome in its programmed arc. Morning became midday. Midday became afternoon. 7 watched from his position near the North Grove. He saw the keepers pass by 63's cluster 3 times. 3 times they looked at their tablets, made notes, and walked away. He saw the child's mother holding her, rocking her, making sounds that the Vethian would classify as social distress vocalization. He saw 63's breathing grow shallow. The visitors above pressed their buttons. Nutrient blocks fell. Some of the humans shuffled over to collect them. Performance. The eternal performance. A Yanari tourist paused at the barrier. Slim, pale, large, dark eyes. It stared down at the habitat for a long moment. Its companion tugged at its arm. Come on, this one's depressing. Something feels wrong, the Yanari said. They're just animals. Let's go. The Yanari lingered a moment longer, then turned away. Seven noted it, filed it. The Yanari were telepathically sensitive. They avoided Dome 14, said it felt wrong. They were the only ones who noticed. By late afternoon, 63 stopped coughing. By evening, she stopped breathing. Her mother's wail cut through the habitat, a raw, broken sound that made the other humans stop what they were doing, made them turn, made them watch. On the observation deck, a few visitors glanced down. One of them activated the audio guide, trying to identify the behavior. Distress vocalization, the guide explained. Common in social species following loss of offspring. Note the clustering response of nearby specimens. This behavior typically subsides within 2 to 4 hours. Seven stood motionless in the North Grove. His hands had stopped working the fiber. His jaw was tight. 15 years of watching children born in cages, watching them grow up behind barriers, watching them get sick, get hurt, get taken away for study. No new humans were ever coming. When one died, the total only went down. 63 made 212. 212 humans who had died in the preserve since Earth fell. Old age, illness, accidents. The ones who simply stopped eating. 212 deaths, and the keepers had taken notes on every single one. Night fell in Dome 14. The artificial sun dimmed to a pale glow, simulating moonlight. The observation deck emptied. The visitors went to their hotels, their ships, their comfortable lives. The humans remained. 219 moved through the shadows, following paths he had memorized years ago, routes that avoided the keeper sensors, angles that stayed out of the observation deck's sight lines. He found Seven in the North Grove, standing near the oldest bamboo stand, waiting. "What did you hear?" Seven asked. 219's voice was low, barely a whisper. The Curator Prime came, after the child died. He spoke to the senior keeper. And? Administrative order, from station governance. They're reducing the collection. Seven didn't move, reducing. 300 to 200. 100 specimens to be terminated. The Curator Prime has 7 days to make his selection. Silence. The bamboo creaked overhead. Somewhere in the habitat, a human was still crying. The sound carried in the artificial night. Selection criteria? Seven asked. Age, health, compliance scores. He said he'll start with the elderly, then the unproductive. Seven closed his eyes. The elderly. That meant 41 would be first on their list. Then 12, who had taught the children to count. Then 87, who remembered songs from Earth that no one else remembered. The unproductive. That meant anyone who couldn't perform for the visitors. Anyone who had stopped pretending. 100 of them, marked for termination, because the collection had exceeded sustainable parameters. How long have we been waiting? Seven asked. 219 didn't hesitate. 15 years. How long have we been ready? 3 years, maybe more. Seven opened his eyes. He looked up at the barrier above them, where the visitors watched during the day, where the keepers observed, where the Vithian had decided, over and over, that humans were animals incapable of language, planning, or revenge. Find 41, Seven said. Bring him here. 219 was already moving. 20 minutes later, the three of them stood in the grove. The coal bed smoldered nearby, its heat barely visible in the darkness. 41 listened to 219's report. His face didn't change. When it was done, he looked at Seven. Timeline? 7 days. Less if we move before they're ready. The barriers? 219 knows 3 weak points. The maintenance hatch that leads to Sector 4 hasn't been properly sealed in 2 years. We can force it. 41 nodded slowly. Weapons? 47 spears, 18 clubs, cordage for snares, fire. That's not enough for 300. It's not, 7 agreed. But it's enough for a first wave. We take the keepers. We take their tools. We arm more. 41 was quiet for a moment. The coals crackled behind him. The sound of a fire kept burning in secret. The others? He asked. We tell them tonight. The ones we trust. The ones who are ready. 7 paused. Not everyone will come. I know. Some of them have children. Some of them are too old. Some of them have been broken for so long, they can't imagine anything else. 41 looked at him. But the ones who come, they'll fight? They'll fight. 41 turned to 219. The young man stood straight, waiting. He had never known freedom, never walked under an open sky, never lived a day without being watched, counted, catalogued, and he was ready to kill for a world he couldn't remember. The keepers, 41 said. When we take them, you understand what that means? Yes. There's no going back. Once we move, we either get out or we die. I know. 41 held his gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. Good. 7 stepped forward. The 3 of them stood in a circle, in the shadow of the bamboo, in a habitat built to hold them forever. 15 years, 7 said. They've watched us, studied us, decided what we are. He looked toward the east, where 63's body still lay, waiting to be collected by the keepers for disposal. They think we're animals. He turned back to the others. It's time to show them what animals do when you corner them. The coals burned red in the darkness. By morning, everything would change. Morning came to Dome 14 the way it always did. The artificial sun brightened in programmed increments. The bamboo cast long shadows across the mud. The stream recycled itself in an endless loop. The keepers came for 63 at first light. 2 of them, junior staff. They brought a containment bag and a hovering transport pod, standard equipment for specimen disposal. The humans watched. They sat in their clusters. They wove grass. They made soft sounds. They did exactly what animals with a 2.3 intelligence rating were supposed to do. The keepers didn't notice that the clusters had shifted overnight, that certain humans were positioned closer to the pathways, that hands rested near patches of mud that looked undisturbed but weren't. The first keeper knelt beside 63's body. His skin flickered pale green. Routine task, minor interest. He activated his tablet, logging time of death, probable cause, specimen number. Respiratory failure, he said to his colleague. Natural processes. The second keeper was already looking at the transport pod's charge level. We need to finish before the observation deck opens. Visitors don't like seeing removal. Bad for the experience. Exactly. They lifted 63 into the containment bag. Small, light. 8 years of life reduced to a logistics problem. 63's mother stood 20 meters away. She hadn't moved since dawn. Her face was empty. Her hands hung at her sides. The keepers didn't look at her. Why would they? Grief behavior in social species was well documented. It would subside within 2 to 4 hours. The audio guide said so. They sealed the bag, loaded the pod, walked toward the keeper entrance. 7 watched from the North Grove. His fingers worked a strip of fiber. His eyes tracked every step. The keepers passed within 3 meters of 41. They didn't see his hands buried in the mud, resting on a fire-hardened spear. They passed within 5 meters of 219. They didn't hear his breathing slow, didn't notice his weight shift forward onto the balls of his feet. They reached the entrance. The airlock cycled. They were gone. 7 exhaled. Not yet. Not in daylight. Not with visitors coming. Tonight, the observation deck, filled by mid-morning. A school group from the Uraxi Trade Consortium pressed against the barrier. Young insectoids, carapaces gleaming, compound eyes reflecting the habitat below. Their instructor pointed at the humans with one segmented limb. "Note the lack of coordinated activity," the instructor said. "Despite living in proximity for extended periods, Homo sapiens show no evidence of task specialization or hierarchical organization. They exist in a state of permanent social stagnation." One of the students raised a limb. "Why don't they build things?" "The archive says they had cities." An excellent question. The current scientific consensus is that human cities were naturally occurring formations that humans sheltered within, much like certain crustacean species occupy abandoned shells. The misconception of human construction arose from early observation errors. The students clicked their mandibles in understanding. Below, Seven listened. He understood enough Uraxi to follow the lesson. Those years of exposure had given him fragments of a dozen languages. Not fluency, that was 219's gift, but enough to catch the shape of what was being said. Naturally occurring formations. He thought of the bridges he had built, the calculations, the years of study, the crews he had managed, the weight of concrete and steel, balanced against gravity and wind and time. Naturally occurring? No, absolutely not. His hands kept working the fiber. His face stayed empty. The instructor continued the lesson. The students took notes on their tablets. After 20 minutes, they moved on to the next exhibit. Seven didn't watch them go. He was watching the keepers. By midday, the word had spread to every human who needed to know. Not all of them. Not the children. Not the ones too old to fight. Not the ones who had broken years ago and now sat in the mud, waiting for death. 83 humans knew what was coming. 83 who had been waiting for Seven to say the word. Tonight! The weapons moved in silence. Spears passed from cache to cache, hidden beneath woven grass mats, buried in mud walls concealed in the thick bamboo of the blind spots. 47 spears, 18 clubs, coils of cordage made from plant fiber, strong enough to bind or strangle. 41 supervised the distribution. He moved through the habitat like a man checking on sleeping children, pausing here and there, exchanging a few low words, a nod, a touch on the shoulder. In a blind spot near the western mudflat, he gathered a group of 12 humans. The youngest was 19. The oldest was 46. None of them had held a weapon since Earth. 41 held up a spear, fire-hardened bamboo, sharp enough to punch through flesh. "Grip here," he said, demonstrating. "Not too tight. You'll tire out. Not too loose. It'll twist on impact." The 12 watched, learned. "This isn't hunting," 41 continued. "When you hunt, you're trying to kill clean, preserve the meat, minimize suffering." He paused. "This is different. This is about stopping something that's trying to stop you. Speed matters. Hesitation kills." A man called 78 raised his hand. He had been an accountant on Earth. Spreadsheets, numbers, a life measured in decimal points. "What if I freeze?" he asked. 41 looked at him. No judgment, no contempt, just truth. "Then you die, and the person next to you might die too." He lowered the spear. "I'm not going to tell you it's easy. It's not. First time you put a point into something that screams, your body's going to want to stop. Your hands will shake. Your stomach will turn." He stepped closer to 78. "But here's what I need you to remember. That thing you're putting the spear into, it watched 63 die. It took notes. It called it natural processes." His voice didn't rise, didn't need to. "You're not killing a person. You're killing a thing that thinks you're furniture, and furniture doesn't get to have feelings about it." 78 nodded slowly. "Now," 41 said, "grip here. Watch the angle." 7 found her near the eastern mudflat. 63's mother sat where she had been that morning. Same spot. Same posture. She hadn't eaten, hadn't spoken. 7 sat beside her. Didn't speak either. The artificial sun moved overhead. Visitors came and went on the observation deck. Someone pressed the feeding button 7 times. Nutrient blocks tumbled into the mud 30 meters away. Neither of them moved to collect them. After a long time, she spoke. Her name was going to be Lily. Seven turned his head slightly. I never told anyone, she continued. Not even her. I was afraid if I gave her a real name, they'd find out. Take it away somehow. Add it to their notes. Her voice was flat, scraped clean. So I just called her 63, like they wanted. And now she's gone, and she never knew she had a real name. Seven was quiet for a moment. She knew, he said. The woman looked at him. She knew you loved her. She knew you held her every night. She knew you fought for extra rations when she was hungry. She knew you stood between her and the keepers when they came too close. He paused. Names are just sounds. She knew what mattered. The woman's eyes glistened. She didn't cry. She was past crying. Tonight? She asked. Tonight. She reached into the mud beside her, pulled out a stake. Fire-hardened bamboo. Sharp as hate. Her name was Lily, she said, and I'm going to make them remember it. Night fell. The artificial sun dimmed. The observation deck emptied. The last visitors filed out through the main concourse, chattering about dinner plans and which exhibits to see tomorrow. Dome 14 went quiet, but not still. In the shadows, humans moved. They flowed through the habitat like water through cracks, following paths mapped over 15 years. Paths the keepers had never seen. Paths that existed in the blind spots, in the gaps between sensors, in the places where the Vithian had never thought to look. Seven stood at the North Grove, 41 beside him. 2, 19 ahead, crouched near the keeper entrance, listening. 3 keepers on evening rotation. 7 knew their patterns, knew their timing, knew exactly when the first one would enter the habitat for the atmospheric check. 22 minutes. He raised his hand, held up 2 fingers, then 1. 21 minutes. Across the habitat, teams moved into position. The first group near the keeper entrance, the second group at the observation post access, the third group at the maintenance hatch that led to Sector 4. 41 checked his spear one final time, tested the point against his thumb. A bead of blood welled up. He wiped it on his leg. Never thought I'd miss the taste of real coffee so much. 41 almost smiled. Funny what you think about at the end. This isn't the end, 7 said. No. 41 looked at him. This is the part where we find out what we're made of. 18 minutes. 219 raised his hand. Signal. The first keeper was approaching the entrance early. 7's jaw tightened. Change of pattern. The keepers never came early. 15 years of routine. And now, tonight, they changed. Didn't matter. He gave the signal. 3 short gestures. Attack positions. The humans moved. The first keeper entered Dome 14 at exactly the wrong moment. He was young. Junior staff. 3 months on the job. He had taken the position because it was easy duty. The human exhibit was boring, but safe. Good place to build seniority before transferring to something more interesting. He stepped through the airlock, tablet in hand, already thinking about the atmospheric readings he needed to log. He didn't see 219. The young man rose from the shadows like something that had always been there. Silent. Fast. The bamboo stake punched through the keeper's throat before he could make a sound. The Vethian's skin flashed bright red. Pain. Terror. His forearms spasmed, reaching for something. The alarm. A weapon. Anything. His tablet clattered to the ground. 219 twisted the stake, pulled it free. The keeper collapsed. His skin cycled through colors. Red, orange, yellow, gray. Then nothing. Dead. 219 stood over the body. His hands were steady. His breathing was controlled. He had never killed anything before. He thought he would feel something. Horror. Guilt. Triumph. He felt nothing. He took the sedation wand from the keeper's belt, the tablet, the access key clipped to his uniform. 7 and 41 moved on the observation post simultaneously. The second keeper was there, monitoring the habitat feeds on a bank of screens. She was older than the first, more experienced. She had seen the intake of the original human specimens 15 years ago, had watched them shuffle off the transport ships, confused, terrified, already broken. She heard the door open behind her. "You're early," she said without turning. "The readings aren't due for another." 41's spear took her through the back. The point emerged from her chest, just left of center. Her skin flashed red, then white, a color 7 had never seen before. She tried to turn, tried to speak. Blood bubbled from her mouth. 41 pulled the spear free. She fell. 7 was already at the console. His fingers moved across the controls, muscle memory from a lifetime ago, adapting to alien interfaces. The screens showed feeds from across Dome 14. He found the one he needed, the Keeper entrance. 219 was dragging the first body out of sight. "Good. Third Keeper," 7 said. "Location?" 41 checked the screens. Approaching from the main corridor. 2 minutes. Alert status? Green. No alarms. They had 90 seconds before the third Keeper reached the entrance. 90 seconds before someone noticed the other 2 weren't responding. 7 made a decision. "We take him in the corridor, outside the dome." 41 nodded. They moved. The third Keeper died in the hallway. He rounded the corner and found 2 humans waiting for him. His brain couldn't process it. Humans outside the habitat. Humans with weapons. Humans looking at him with expressions that weren't docile or confused or afraid. He reached for his sedation wand. A spear went through his eye. His body hit the floor with a wet thud. His skin never had time to change color. 7 pulled the spear free, wiped it on the Keeper's uniform, took the wand, the tablet, the keys. 3 Keepers down. 41 was already at the maintenance hatch, the one that led to Sector 4, the one that hadn't been properly sealed in 2 years. He pressed the stolen access key to the panel. Red light. He tried again. Red light. "Wrong key," he said. 219 appeared beside them, handed over the key from the first Keeper. 41 tried it. Green light. The hatch hissed open. Cold air rushed in. Metal walls, bright lights. The smell of something that wasn't bamboo or mud or recycled water. The station. For the first time in 15 years, humans looked at something beyond their cage. 219 stepped through first, then 41, then 7. Behind them, the other humans followed. 80 fighters, moving in silence, carrying spears and clubs and 15 years of patience sharpened into a point. They were out. The Keeper corridors were a maze. Metal walls, flickering lights, signs in Vethian script that 219 murmured as he translated. Storage, maintenance, environmental control, Sector 4 hub. 41 led the first group. 20 fighters, the strongest, the fastest. 7 followed with the second group, 30 more. The rest held position at the hatch, guarding the exit, ready to receive the ones who couldn't fight, the children, the elderly, the broken ones, still waiting in the dome. They encountered the maintenance drone at the first junction, a small thing, 6-legged, sensors and tools instead of weapons. It was checking a wall panel when 41's group turned the corner. The drone's sensors locked onto them. Its transmitter began to pulse. 41 closed the distance in 3 steps. His club crushed the drone's central processor before it could complete the signal. Sparks. A whine. Silence. "Keep moving," 41 said. They found the supply room 2 corridors later. The door wasn't locked. Why would it be? This section was behind the exhibits, accessible only to staff. No one expected intruders. Inside. Tools. Metal tools. 41 stepped through the door and stopped. For a moment, he just stood there, looking at the racks of equipment lining the walls. Plasma cutters, welding torches, pry bars, diagnostic instruments with edges sharp enough to cut. A long time since he had held real metal. He picked up a plasma cutter, felt the weight, found the activation switch. A blade of superheated plasma hummed to life, casting blue light across his face. "This changes things," he said. 7 nodded. "Arm everyone who can carry." The humans spread through the supply room, hands that had known only bamboo and mud, now closed around steel and alloy. Weapons meant for cutting conduit and welding hull plates became something else entirely. They took everything they could carry. 3 minutes. Then the alarm started. Curator Prime Yevelith was in his office when the alert reached him. He had been reviewing the selection criteria for the population reduction, a tedious task, but necessary. Sustainable parameters had to be maintained. The collection had to be preserved, in appropriate numbers. His tablet chimed. He glanced at it. Dome 14. Keeper unresponsive. Atmospheric check overdue. He sighed. Probably a technical malfunction. The junior staff were unreliable. He would have to file another complaint with station administration. He tapped the response icon. Dome 14 Keeper, report status. Silence. He tried again. Keeper 2, respond. Silence. His skin shifted to pale yellow, mild concern. He activated the habitat feeds. The screens showed Dome 14 in night mode, humans clustered in their sleeping areas, everything normal. Except, he leaned closer. The clusters were wrong, too small. He ran a quick count. 216 specimens visible. There should be 299. His skin flashed orange. Alarm. He activated the station-wide security channel. Security. This is Curator Prime Yevelith. I have a potential anomaly in Sector 6, requesting immediate status check on Dome 14 Keeper staff. The response came 30 seconds later. Curator Prime, security shows all Dome 14 access points sealed. No breaches detected. Then where are my keepers? Pause. Checking internal sensors now. Stand by. Yevelith waited. His skin cycled through shades of orange and yellow. Something was wrong. He could feel it. The security officer's voice returned. Flat. Confused. Curator Prime, we're showing movement in the Sector 4 Keeper corridors. Multiple contacts. Unidentified. What kind of movement? Unknown. The signatures don't match any staff profiles. A pause. They don't match any species profiles. Yevelith's skin went red. Lock down Sector 4. Send a response team. Now. Sir, Sector 4 is a maintenance zone. We don't have protocols for... Send them! He cut the channel, pulled up the Sector 4 corridor feeds. For a long moment, he didn't understand what he was seeing. Humans. Humans in the corridors. Humans carrying weapons. His mind rejected it. Impossible. The specimens were Category C fauna, intelligence rating 2.3. They couldn't plan, couldn't coordinate, couldn't. On the screen, a human raised a plasma cutter and sliced through a security drone. Yevelith's skin went white. The security team arrived 4 minutes later. 2 officers. Standard response for an equipment malfunction. They were armed with pulse weapons. Standard sidearms for station security. They had never used them on a living target. They walked into the Sector 4 junction, expecting a technical problem. They found 41's group waiting, 20 fighters already in position. The first officer died before he understood what was happening. A spear through the chest. He fell backward, pulse weapon discharging into the ceiling. The second officer fired. The pulse beam hit a human called 94. The man's body jerked, convulsed, collapsed, dead before he hit the ground. 41 was already moving. The plasma cutter hummed. Blue light flashed. The security officer's head hit the floor 3 seconds before his body did. Silence. 7 knelt beside 94, checked for a pulse, found nothing. 94 had been 40 years old, a teacher on Earth, history and literature. He had volunteered for the front line because he said the young ones needed to survive more than he did. 7 closed the man's eyes. First blood, 41 said quietly. Theirs and ours. 7 stood, and not the last. He looked at the security officers' bodies, at the pulse weapons on the floor. Real weapons now, not bamboo, not plasma cutters. He picked one up, checked the charge. Full. They know, he said. The whole station knows. As if in answer, the lights in the corridor flickered. A new alarm began to sound. Deeper. More urgent. A voice echoed through the station's speakers. Vethian. 219 translated in real time. Attention all personnel. Security alert. Hostile fauna breach in Sector 4. Category upgraded to active threat. Armed response authorized. All civilians proceed to designated safe zones. Hostile fauna. They still couldn't say it. Still couldn't call them what they were. Seven looked at his people. 82 fighters now, armed with spears, clubs, plasma cutters, and 2 pulse weapons. The path to the communication array was still ahead, the docking bay beyond that. And now the entire station was hunting them. We move, Seven said. Fast. Together. We stop for nothing. They moved. Behind them, 94's body lay in the corridor, the first human to die free in 15 years. He wouldn't be the last. The corridor lights flickered red. Emergency lighting. The station's heartbeat stuttering as alarms screamed through every sector. Seven ran. Beside him, 219 moved like a shadow, eyes scanning every sign, every junction, every door they passed. Behind them, 79 fighters followed in tight formation. The hatch team had rejoined at the first junction. Everyone who could fight was moving forward now. 94's body was already far behind. They couldn't carry him, couldn't stop. The dead would have to wait. Left here, 219 said. Maintenance junction. Leads to the core access corridor. They turned. The corridor narrowed. Pipes overhead. Conduits along the walls. The station's guts exposed. A security drone dropped from a ceiling hatch. Seven fired without breaking stride. The pulse weapon kicked in his hand. The drone exploded, showering sparks across the floor. He didn't slow down. How far? He asked. 400 meters to the core junction, then another 200 to the communication array. 600 meters. On Earth, Seven could have walked it in 5 minutes. Here, with security teams converging from every direction, it might as well have been 600 kilometers. They encountered the first patrol at the next junction. 3 Vethian officers, armed with pulse rifles. They were setting up a portable barricade when the humans came around the corner. For a moment, everyone froze. The Vethian had been briefed on the threat. Hostile fauna, armed, dangerous. But briefings were words. This was something else. Humans pouring out of the darkness, faces hard, weapons raised, moving with a coordination that wasn't supposed to exist. The lead officer's skin flashed orange, fear. 41 hit them before they could fire. His plasma cutter carved through the first officer's rifle, then the officer himself. Blue light. A scream that cut off wet. The second officer fired wild, pulse beam scorching the ceiling. A human called 162 went down, chest smoking. Seven shot the second officer. 219 took the third with a spear through the throat. They kept moving. The core junction was 4 corridors, converging into a single wide passage, the main artery of the station. Every critical system connected through here. Administration, security headquarters, communication array, docking bays. And the Vethian had finally figured out where the humans were going. Seven held up his fist. The column stopped. He pressed against the wall, edged forward, looked around the corner. 30 Vethian security officers, full tactical gear, pulse rifles, energy shields. They had built a barricade across the junction, portable barriers, overturned equipment, a makeshift wall of metal and light. Behind the barricade, more officers were arriving. Reinforcements from across the station. Seven pulled back. How many? 41 asked. 30. More coming. Shields. Yes. 41's jaw tightened. Energy shields would stop spears, would stop plasma cutters at range, would even stop pulse weapons for a few shots. They could push through. Probably. But the cost would be most of them. We need to split them, 41 said. Draw some away. Hit them from 2 sides. Seven looked at him. They both knew what that meant. Someone would have to be the bait. Someone would have to hold the attention of armed, shielded officers long enough for the main group to break through. Someone wouldn't be coming back. I'll take 10, 41 said. There's a parallel corridor. Runs along the maintenance level. Comes out behind their position. We make noise. They turn to deal with us. You punch through the front. That's not a flanking maneuver. That's a sacrifice. It's a choice. 41 met his eyes. I've been ready for 15 years, 7. I was ready the day they put a number on me and took my name away. Brannick, 7 said. 41 blinked. Your name, 7 continued. Brannick Weeds, Merchant Marine. You told me once, year 3, you were drunk on fermented nutrient paste. For a moment, something shifted in 41's face. Something old. Something human. I never forgot my name, he said quietly. I didn't think anyone else would remember. I remember everything. 41 nodded slowly. Then remember this, too. He gripped 7's shoulder, squeezed once, hard. Get them out. All of them. The children, the old ones, the broken ones. Get them to the stars. I will. And when you do? 41 paused. When you find a world that's green and blue and doesn't have barriers around it, you put a stone down somewhere. Doesn't have to be big. Just a stone. And you tell them, Brannick Ides helped build the road that got them there. 7's throat tightened. He didn't trust himself to speak. He just nodded. 41 turned to the column. I need 10. Volunteers only. You come with me, you're not coming back. But you'll be the reason everyone else does. Silence. Then hands went up. 1, 3, 7, 12. 41 picked 10. The fastest. The ones with the steadiest hands. He didn't say goodbye to anyone else. Didn't make a speech. Just nodded once at 7, once at 219, and led his team down the parallel corridor. 7 watched him go. The last thing he saw was 41's back disappearing into the shadows, straight, unbowed. Then he was gone. They waited. 2 minutes. 3. The barricade held. The Vethian officers talked among themselves, skin flickering between colors, confidence, boredom, occasional flashes of anxiety. They thought they had the situation contained. Fauna in the corridors. Dangerous but manageable. The barricade would hold until heavier response teams arrived. Then 41 hit them from behind. The first sign was light. Blue plasma light flashing in the corridor beyond the barricade. Then sound, screams, pulse fire, the wet crunch of metal through flesh. The Vethian turned. Half of them. Then more. Officers shouting, redirecting, pulling forces from the barricade to deal with the new threat. 7 didn't wait. Now, he said. 70 humans surged forward. They hit the barricade like a wave. Pulse fire streaked toward them. 3 humans went down. 4. But the rest kept coming. Pouring over the barriers, through the gaps, around the shields. 7 fired as he ran. 1 shot. 2. An officer's shield flickered and died. A spear took him in the chest before he could raise his rifle. 219 was beside him, moving fast, staying low. A Vathian swung at him with a shock baton. He ducked, came up inside the officer's guard, drove a sharpened stake through the soft flesh under the chin. The junction became chaos. Bodies. Blood. The smell of ozone and copper. Humans and Vethian tangled together, too close for rifles, fighting with fists and blades and teeth. 7 lost track of time, lost track of numbers. There was only the next enemy, the next swing, the next shot. And then, suddenly, there were no more. He stood in the middle of the junction, breathing hard. Around him, humans picked themselves up, checked wounds, counted losses. 11 more dead, 59 fighters remaining. From the parallel corridor, the sounds of fighting had stopped. 7 looked toward it, waited, hoping. No one came. 41 was gone. The communication array was 200 meters ahead. They covered the distance in under a minute. The door was sealed, magnetically locked. A security measure triggered by the station alert. 219 pressed his stolen access key to the panel. Red light. He tried another key. Red light. They've locked us out, he said. Authorization level changed. These keys won't work anymore. 7 looked at the door. Reinforced alloy. Designed to withstand decompression, fire, impact. Not designed to withstand plasma cutters applied with patience, But they didn't have patience. Every second, more security was mobilizing. Can you bypass it? 219 studied the panel. His fingers moved across the interface, testing options. Maybe. The system's Vythian standard. I've heard them discuss maintenance overrides. There's a code sequence they use when keys fail. How long? I don't know. A minute. Maybe 2. Seven turned to the fighters behind him. Hold the corridor. Nothing gets through. They spread out, formed a line. Pulse weapons at the front. Spears and plasma cutters behind. 58 humans blocking the path to the array while 219 worked the override behind them. 219 worked. 30 seconds. Footsteps echoed from the far end of the corridor. More security. A lot more. 60 seconds. The first Vythian officers appeared. They saw the human line and stopped. Regrouped. Formed their own line. Shields up. Rifles leveled. A standoff. 90 seconds. Almost there. 219 muttered. The override sequence is 11 characters. I've heard them say 10 of them. The last one. Guess. If I guess wrong, it triggers a lockdown. Permanently. Then guess right. 219's hand hovered over the panel. His jaw tightened. He entered the final character. Green light. The door slid open. 3 technicians stood inside. They saw the humans. Their skin went white. Out, Seven said. They ran. The technicians burst into the corridor, stumbling toward the Vythian security line, skin flashing panic colors, voices layered with terror. They're inside. The fauna, they're armed. They killed the keepers. The Vythian officers froze. Their training covered containment, sedation, crowd control. Nothing in their protocols addressed this. Armed specimens, coordinated attack. Fauna that moved like soldiers and looked at them like prey. Seven didn't wait for them to figure it out. Inside, he said. Unarmed first. Weapons cover the door. The humans moved, slipping through the door in a steady stream. The fighters with ranged weapons held position, aiming at the Vythian line. The Vythian didn't fire. They watched, rifles raised but fingers frozen, waiting for orders that never came. One by one, the humans disappeared into the communication array. Seven was last. He backed through the doorway, pulse weapon trained on the corridor. 219 hit the override. The door sealed shut. 59 humans inside. The communication array was a cathedral of technology. Towering transmitters rose toward the ceiling. Consoles banked along the walls, blinking with data streams from across the galaxy. A holographic display dominated the center of the room, showing the station's position relative to 1,000 distant stars. 3 technicians were inside. They looked up as the humans entered. Their skin went white. Out, Seven said. They ran. 219 went straight to the primary broadcast console. His hands moved across controls he had never touched, but had heard described 100 times. Frequency settings, power allocation, signal range. I can open every channel, he said. Every ship in range, every station, every relay buoy in the sector. Do it. 219's fingers moved fast. The console hummed. Lights shifted from amber to green. You're live, he said. The galaxy is listening. Seven stepped to the console, looked at the blinking indicator that meant his voice would travel across the stars. For 15 years, humans had been silent. Specimens, exhibits, things that made sounds without meaning. Now they would hear meaning. Seven pressed the transmit key. This is Seven, human, formerly of Earth. His voice was steady. No rage, no tremor, just truth. 15 years ago, your species watched our world burn. You collected the survivors. You put us in cages and called it conservation. You sold tickets to watch us eat. You published studies proving we couldn't think. You let our children die and called it natural processes. He paused. Let the words settle across the void. We are not animals. We have never been animals. We remember. We learn. We build. We wait. Another pause. The gallery of fading worlds is now under human control. Your keepers are dead. Your security has failed. Your assumptions have cost you everything. He thought of 41, of 94, of 63, who had a name her mother never got to use. We do not want your pity. We do not want your guilt. We want passage. Any ship that offers transport will have our gratitude and our memory. Any ship that approaches with hostile intent will be met in kind. He leaned closer to the console. You thought we almost made it. You were right. We almost made it once. We will make it again. This is not a request for help. This is a notification. Humanity is still here. Pause. And we remember everything. He cut the transmission. Silence. 219 was staring at him. The young man who had never known Earth, who had grown up in a cage, who had learned to kill for a world that existed only in other people's memories. The docking bay, 7 said. We're not done. They reached the docking bay without resistance. The corridors were empty. Security had pulled back, regrouping, trying to understand what had happened. The broadcast was still echoing through the station's speakers. Someone had put it on loop, whether by accident or design. The bay was cavernous. A dozen ships of various sizes sat on landing pads, cargo shuttles, personal transports, a Vethian diplomatic vessel with elegant curves. 7 pointed at a mid-sized cargo shuttle. That one. Enough room for everyone. 219 ran ahead to check the systems. The remaining fighters secured the bay exits. 7 turned to a woman called 15. Take 20. Go back for the others. The children. The elderly. Everyone who stayed in the dome. The station is in chaos. No one will stop you. 15 nodded. She was 35, had been a nurse on Earth. She had killed 3 Vethian officers in the junction fight. We'll bring them all, she said. She gathered her team and disappeared into the corridors. 7 waited. The bay was quiet. The hum of ship systems, the distant wail of alarms, the echo of his own broadcast still playing. Then footsteps. Single set, coming from the main entrance. 7 raised his pulse weapon. Curator Prime Yevelith walked into the docking bay. He was alone, unarmed. His skin cycled through colors 7 had never seen. Pale violet, deep gray, a sickly yellow-green. Confusion. Grief. Something that might have been despair. He stopped 10 meters from 7. Why? He asked. His voice was quiet, broken. 7 didn't lower the weapon. Why what? Why would you do this? Yevelith's forearms hung limp at his sides. We preserved you. We saved your species from extinction. We gave you shelter, food, safety. We documented your culture, your biology, your history. We ensured your memory would survive even after the last of you died. We were protecting you. 7 let him finish. And the child? He asked. Yevelith blinked. Child? 63, 8 years old. Born in your preserve. Respiratory infection. Treatable. You let her die. That was... Yevelith's skin flickered. Population management requires... Her name was Lily. Yevelith stopped. Her mother named her Lily, 7 said. She never told her. She was afraid you would take it away. Add it to your notes. Document it like everything else. He stepped closer. She died, never knowing she had a real name. And your keepers stood there and called it natural processes. I didn't. Yevelith's skin went pale. I was following protocols, sustainable parameters. The collection had to be maintained at optimal. She wasn't a collection. She was a child. You don't understand. Your species was extinct. Without us, we would have died free. 7 raised the pulse weapon. Yevelith's skin went white. Pure terror. You can't. I'm unarmed. This isn't... Justice? 7 fired. The Curator Prime fell. His body hit the deck with a soft thump. His skin cycled through one final sequence of colors. Red, orange, yellow, gray, and then went still. 7 stood over him. He waited to feel something. Triumph, satisfaction, peace. He felt nothing. They came in waves. First, the retrieval team returned. 15 at the front, 20 fighters with her, leading a column of humans through the corridors, children clutching the hands of adults, the elderly leaning on younger shoulders, the broken ones walking for the first time in years because the cage was finally open. 7 watched them board. When the last human crossed the ramp, he counted again. 275. Not everyone who had escaped. Not everyone who had fought. But everyone who was still alive. Once, they had been 1 through 300. Inventory. Designations. Now the numbers meant something else, a census of survival, a record of who had made it out. The cargo shuttle's engines hummed to life. 219 sat at the helm, hands moving across controls he was learning in real time. He had never flown anything. But he had watched, listened, absorbed. He would figure it out, he always did. 7 was the last to board. He paused at the airlock, looking back at the docking bay, at Yevlith's body on the deck, at the station beyond, the gallery of fading worlds. Smoke curled through distant corridors. Sector 4. A fuel line ruptured during the fighting. Secondary explosions rippled through the station. The gallery was burning. 7 sealed the airlock. "Go," he said. The shuttle lifted, cleared the bay, slipped into open space. Through the viewport, the station shrank, just another point of light among the stars. 7 watched until it vanished. Then he sat beside 219. "Where do we go?" the young man asked. 7 looked out at the stars. Thousands of them. Millions. Suns warming worlds that had heard the broadcast. "Anywhere," he said. "Everywhere." He paused. "We have time now." The ship flew on. Behind them, the past burned. Ahead, the universe waited. 275 humans. The last of Earth. Survivors. Builders. Free. 7 closed his eyes. He had work to do. 41 stone was already waiting to be placed.
Hey there, space human. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind. Or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Also, remember to check the pinned comment. Trust me, it's worth a look. Oh, and one last thing. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here. Or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.